Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to uncover the surprising and honestly pretty dramatic origin story of an absolute American luxury icon. When you hear the name Cadillac today, you immediately think of prestige, size, and status, right? But what if I told you that this legendary brand literally only exists because of a spectacularly failed business relationship? We're going to look at how a simple dispute over the direction of a company birthed a standard of automotive excellence that fundamentally changed how cars are built. Okay, so let's dive right into this wild piece of history. Picture this. We're going back to Detroit in the year 1902. Long before the Model T put the world on wheels, Henry Ford was actually struggling, and the Cadillac brand literally rose from the ashes of Ford's failed second company, which, ironically enough, was called the Henry Ford Company. It's just a classic tale of clashing egos and vastly different visions for the future of the automobile, and it perfectly sets the stage for everything we're about to explore today.
All right, let's kick things off with the 1902 split and Ford's dramatic exit. So it all started with a really bitter boardroom dispute between Henry Ford and his primary financial backers, William Murphy and Lemuel Bowen. See, Ford was super focused on racing and building out his own mechanical visions. But his investors, well, they were desperately looking for a viable, sellable production car so they could actually make some money. The tension finally boils over in March of 1902. Ford just walks away. He takes a $900 severance package, the rights to his name, and the plans for a two-cylinder car he designed. He would, of course, go on to eventually build the Ford Motor Company we all know today. But on the flip side, the investors, Murphy and Bowen, are left holding the bag. They've got an empty factory in Detroit, and their only plan is to simply bring in an engineer to appraise the equipment, liquidate the assets, and just cut their losses.
But then we get a massive pivot. Enter a guy named Henry M. Leland. The man the investors brought in to appraise the factory was Henry Leland. He was an engineer who ran a precision machining company called Leland and Falconer. But instead of just liquidating the place, he pitches this wildly bold idea: stay in the automobile business. And his solution was brilliant. He had this remarkably robust, highly reliable 10-horsepower, single-cylinder engine. It was developed by an engineer named Allinson Partridge Brush for Leland's company, originally intended for Oldsmobile, but it went completely unused. They affectionately called it the Little Hercules. Leland tells the investors, hey, let's drop this beautifully engineered, proven motor directly into your existing prototype. On August 22, 1902, the investors officially agreed to the pitch. They completely reorganized the business, transforming the remnants of that old factory on Cass Street into something entirely new. But to wipe the slate clean, they needed a new name. So they chose to honor the French explorer Antoine de la Motte Cadillac, the exact same guy who founded Detroit way back in 1701. And just like that, the Cadillac Automobile Company was officially born. Moving right along to their massive launch at the 1903 New York Auto Show.
With the company formed in late summer of 1902, it was basically an absolute sprint to get a product to market. They rushed to complete their first automobiles, a two-seater runabout and a four-seater rear entrance tonneau, just in time to debut them at that highly prestigious January 1903 show. And the results? Absolutely incredible. They secured a staggering 2,286 firm orders in just days. Eager buyers were throwing down $10 deposits left and right for these $750 cars. Almost overnight, Cadillac was on the map.
Now, you might be wondering, why on earth did they sell so incredibly well? Well, the biggest selling point wasn't just that little Hercules engine, as great as it was. It was precision manufacturing and unmatched reliability. Cadillac simply built a better, far more robust vehicle than its competitors. Leland had this deep, unwavering obsession with precision engineering, something he actually adapted from the firearms industry. That meant Cadillac parts were machined to exact tolerances, making the cars remarkably dependable for that era. Let's take a quick look at how this timeline builds. This rapid rise took Cadillac from a simple motorized buggy in 1902 to a pioneering force in the automotive industry in literally just a few short years. By 1905, they were introducing groundbreaking new body styles, and by 1908, they would achieve something that would forever cement their reputation on the global stage. Looking closely at that 1905 milestone, Leland's constant drive for innovation led to the creation of the Cadillac Osceola. This was a huge deal, as it marked Cadillac's very first fully enclosed car built in volume. Meaning, for the first time, drivers were finally protected from the dirt, the mud, and the terrible weather. Leland actually requested this design specifically because he wanted a car closed to the elements,
and he loved it so much it became his personal daily runabout for years. He named it to honor a Florida Seminole chief he greatly admired.
Which brings us to their ultimate claim to fame, Standard of the World and the 1908 Dewar Trophy.
Cadillac's true crowning achievement, the ultimate flex that proved their unmatched mechanical precision, happened in the UK in 1908, overseen by the Royal Automobile Club. This was an unbelievable feat for the time. To demonstrate the genius of standardized interchangeable parts, mechanics took 3 completely stock Cadillacs and dismantled them, right down to the individual pieces. Then, they randomly mixed all those parts up into one massive pile. Using only basic hand tools, they successfully reassembled 3 complete cars from that mixed-up pile, and then flawlessly drove them for 500 miles without a single mechanical incident.
Honestly, this jaw-dropping demonstration was basically magic for an era where mechanics usually had to hand-file individual parts just to make them fit together. For successfully proving complete part interchangeability, the Royal Automobile Club awarded Cadillac the highly prestigious Dewar Trophy, given for the most important automotive advancement of the entire year. And because of this singular event, Cadillac proudly adopted the legendary slogan you still hear today, Standard of the World.
Now let's look at the ultimate validation and their transition into the General Motors era. You see, earning that Dewar's Trophy proved Cadillac's quality so well that it caught the eye of William Durant. He was the mastermind behind a brand new conglomerate called General Motors. Durant makes his move in 1909, buying Cadillac for a staggering $5.6 million. Cadillac was immediately cemented as GM's premier prestige luxury division, sitting at the very top of their vehicle hierarchy, way above brands like Buick and Oldsmobile. Crucially, though, Henry Leland and his son Wilfred stayed on board as managers, which allowed them to ruthlessly enforce their high standards of precision engineering across the brand's luxury offerings. Now, backed by the immense resources of GM, Cadillac pushed the automotive envelope even further. In 1912, they fundamentally changed how we drive by introducing the very first fully integrated electrical system. This meant electric starting, ignition, and lighting. No more breaking your arm trying to hand crank a cold engine. This innovation was so monumental that Cadillac actually won a second Dewar Trophy for it. But interestingly, this story has one final, unbelievable twist. Henry Leland, the man who basically saved Cadillac and built it into the standard of the world, ends up resigning in 1917. He had this bitter dispute with GM leadership over transitioning the factory to build Liberty airplane engines for World War I. So he leaves, and he founds a new company to build those engines. After the war, he transitions that factory into making cars. And he called that new company Lincoln. Yeah, you heard that right. This one man's absolute obsession with precision engineering directly birthed both Cadillac and Lincoln, America's 2 greatest luxury marques. It really makes you stop and wonder, doesn't it? Next time you see a luxury car cruising down the street, ask yourself, how entirely different would the landscape of automotive history be if Henry Ford and his early investors had actually managed to compromise back in 1902? Sometimes it turns out a spectacular failure is the exact necessary ingredient for creating a standard of the world. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.